Look guys, it's a Surface Pro. Look, it's got a kickstand, a keyboard cover. It's a tablet that'll replace your laptop. Whoa, not so fast there, Sparky. This is the Lenovo Miix 700, and though it looks a lot like a Surface, it is not. It's a Lenovo Miix. I already said that. Try and keep up. Now, of course, Lenovo isn't the only company to come out with a tablet that is also a laptop. HP is doing it, Apple is trying to do it with the iPad Pro, and that's because what Microsoft really did with the Surface is to create a new form factor more than anything else. They created a tablet that wasn't just a tablet, but also a full-featured PC. But what that means is that every time one of these comes out, we have to reevaluate whether one of these devices can actually full-on replace a work laptop. So what does the Lenovo Miix 700 do to mix things up? Well, it's named the Miix, so that's a start. Let's start with the internal specs. The Miix 700 comes in a few different configurations, but the model we have has an Intel Core M5 6Y54 processor clocked at 1.1 GHz, 8 GB of LPDDR3L memory, not DDR4, even though it's Skylake, a 256 gig SATA SSD, a 40 watt-hour battery, AC Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth 4.0. Now that that's out of the way, time for a product tour. As you can see, the back is clad in a really premium feeling brushed aluminum with gold coloring, and the device seems a little thinner than its 8.95 millimeters, thanks to the chamfered edges borrowed from Microsoft Surface. On the back we see the IdeaPad logo to remind us this is from Lenovo's consumer line, not the professional ThinkPad line. There's a Lenovo logo in the top right and a 5 megapixel camera and flash in the middle. You can also get models with an Intel RealSense camera on the back, which means you can't use Windows Hello facial sign-in, so that's kind of weird. Connecting the kickstand to the main body, we've got Lenovo's iconic watch band hinge that they've brought over from the Yoga 900. This was my first chance to see it, and though it doesn't look like it would be very sturdy, it's deceptively strong. It lets the kickstand extend to around 150 degrees, which is more than enough in my opinion. It has little indents on the side to swing it outwards, and a very satisfying click when it closes thanks to magnets. Ooh. The Miix 700 has a 12-inch 2160 by 1440 display with 300 nits of brightness. It covers 113% of the sRGB spectrum, so while it's not the most color-accurate display, it'll be adequate for content creation on the go. Above that, we have another 5 megapixel camera that did a very admirable job of quickly adjusting to light and changing conditions. On to the ports. On the left side, we have a USB 2.0 port that doubles as a charging port. The USB plug for the AC adapter actually has this strange little bend in it, preventing you from plugging it in to other USB ports, because if you did, there'd be too much juice, man, and it would explode. So thank goodness. This is an interesting solution I haven't seen before, but it does kind of suck that the port is limited to USB 2. We also have speaker grills further down on the left side, as well as the right side, below another regular USB 3 port, a micro HDMI port, volume rocker, and power button. On the top, we have dual mics and the 3.5mm audio jack, which I think is an odd placement. There's plenty of space on the left side for the audio jack, but it's not the worst thing, obviously. The Miix also has a micro SD card slot hidden behind the kickstand on the right side, and I almost missed it. Very sneaky. And on the bottom, we just have the proprietary magnetic connector for the Folio keyboard, which is included with the device. So Microsoft, time to follow suit and bundle that shit. Speaking of the keyboard, this is one of the best mobile keyboards I've tried. The chiclet keys are very responsive with a pretty distinct actuation point. I honestly didn't notice that much that I was typing on a mobile keyboard. That said, although it does have a pretty sturdy back, there is quite a bit of flex. This can be remedied by laying the keyboard flat, but that's obviously not the best solution. The other issue I had with the Folio keyboard was the touchpad. While it has a satisfying click and supports multi-touch, it seemingly has no ability to ignore accidental touches while typing, so I found the cursor jumping around a lot while I was typing. It also seemed to have some trouble with light touches in certain areas on it. The cursor would wiggle around, making it hard to use with accuracy. Why you gotta be like that, Miix? On the plus side though, the bottom looks very pretty with a leather finish and attaches nicely to the main body via magnets once again. Okay, so the Lenovo Miix 700 is very pretty. But can it stand up in terms of performance? We know the Core M5 with Intel HD Graphics 515 isn't going to blow anyone out of the water, but it should be okay for most regular people type tasks. Benchmark time! In Cinebench, we got 22 FPS for the OpenGL test, which makes it look like even pretty undemanding games aren't going to run that well, and 148 for the CPU test, putting it pretty low on the power scale. I had a hunch it wouldn't really run, but I tried to play Rocket League anyway, with resolution turned down to 720p and all graphics set to low, and I got what looked like slower than 15 FPS with a ton of stuttering and artifacts. I mean, it's what I expected, but I just wanted to see. Maybe it would pull a rabbit out of the hat, you know. Maybe it would play a less demanding MOBA if you tried that, but I think it's safe to say this thing ain't for gaming, so don't have that as an objective. The SSD inside isn't a fancy number like a PCIe or NVMe or M.2 affair, just a regular SATA SSD from what I could find in the specs. In Crystal Disk Mark, we got 465 megabytes per second in sequential reads and 246 for sequential writes. So that's not amazing, but it's pretty average for an inexpensive SSD. Regardless, I didn't really notice any slowdowns when accessing local data. The batteries seem to perform admirably. Lenovo says it's rated for 9 hours of local video playback, but mine lasted around 4 hours streaming Netflix at 50% brightness, but that's also using, internet, obviously. If you're not watching a ton of video, the Miix should last a full workday of web browsing and some Photoshop. Speaking of which, I loaded up Photoshop and Premiere and played around a bit. Premiere could barely play a few seconds of 1080p footage before it started stuttering, and scrubbing the timeline was just not happening. Although it was a project with raw MTS files from our Sony camera, which don't play amazingly well with Premiere, so you might have better luck with compressed video. It rendered my 3.5-minute 1080p test sequence in about 50 minutes. Photoshop, on the other hand, was pretty smooth, especially using the Lenovo Active Pen. Oh yeah, the Miix has an available stylus for around $40 US. It has 2 customizable buttons and provides 2048 levels of pressure sensitivity, so drawing fine lines or broad strokes is pretty smooth. The hard plastic tip did kind of make me worried about the screen a few times, though. Lenovo has a pre-installed application on the Miix that can make use of the pen called Write It! It lets you tap in a text field and write with the pen, which can be turned into text. You can also draw something and put that in as an image. While it was fun to play around with, the Write It app seemed to misbehave sometimes. The pen comes with an interesting plastic holder thingy though. It inserts into one of the Miix 700's USB ports. So while it's handy for quickly stowing the pen while you put the tablet in your bag, it does block a USB port, so it's not super handy for when you have things plugged in and need the only USB 3 port on the device. Alright, time for me to break the news to you. The price. This particular model goes for around $1,300 Canadian and $1,000 US, although it's cheaper for the models with a Core M3 and smaller SSDs, and a bit more for an upgraded model. It seems like manufacturers are still charging a bit of a price premium for the Surface-type detachable 2-in-1 form factor, because I gotta say, the thinness and lightness of the Miix is very appealing, and you gotta admit, it is gorgeous. Although I would have preferred the black model. But I gotta send this back, so it's all good. The 1440p display is impressive. Everything looked really sharp, and for basic laptop-y and tablet-y type tasks, the Miix performed great. If you're looking for something that does more desktop-y type stuff and gaming, then this is not the PC for you. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you can click here to watch more, follow the NCIX team on social media in this area, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this from NCIX. And as I said, that's the end of the video. So I'm gonna take this and get what use I can out of it before I have to send it back.